And again, they have an incentive to keep it running and keep it flowing because they too want the oil and the gas and all the other things that are missing now, fertilizer, sulfuric acid, hydrogen, nitrogen, and so forth, from being everything's being kept inside the Gulf. They want to get it out. So I don't see a problem, but this doesn't have anything to do with rationality. There is no rationality involved in this. You're dealing with two serious problems. Number one, Israel. Israel has veto authority over anything that President Trump decides to do. He is not in charge. He is responding to Netanyahu. The demands he sets forth in front of the Iranians and says, these are the things you must do. They're not our demands. Those are Israeli demands. So somehow or another, how do you break the hold that Netanyahu has on President Trump and the United States government? Nobody in Congress is going to stand up and jeopardize their income if they oppose the Israel lobby and effectively say no to Mr. Netanyahu. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is President Trump and his personality and his fear of being castigated and humiliated for having done this stupid thing. And attacking Iran was a very dumb idea. Anybody with any sense knew that. And there's nothing that justifies the total mobilization for war that it would require for us to take control of Iran. We're not going to implement a draft and bring over a million people to run all over the countryside and control Iran. It's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody will support it. So how does he get out of it without embarrassing himself? I think that's a serious problem. And if you turn to Mr. Netanyahu and his agents inside the United States, the billionaires that put Trump where he is, and you tell them, well, I'm sorry, guys, I can't go any further. This has to stop, so I'm pulling the plug. They're going to look at him and say, well, then we're pulling the plug on you, my friend. We're taking away the billions of dollars that we've helped you get. We're subtracting those from your side of the ledger. More important, we're not going to protect you anymore from the attacks that you're going to sustain from Congress. Congress will eat you alive without us. So if you don't do what we say, you've had it. Those are the grim facts.
And also, we will release the compromat and whatever is hidden in these Epstein files that we've enabled you to hide from the rest of us. And, the millions of documents that we still are not allowed to see as a result of it. I think you're absolutely right. Where do you think what do you think happens next year? I mean, are we heading back to a full-scale hot war?
I feel like Richard Nixon. I'm glad you asked that question because there are some other things that we don't usually mention that we really do need to talk about. A lot of people don't seem to understand that inflation in April jumped from 3.2 to 3.8%. Projections for the next quarter or two suggest that we may hit 6% inflation. Well, if you go up to 5% or 6% inflation, that means that your interest rates should be fixed at 6% or 7%. Right now, they are fixed at 3.75%, below inflation. Now, what does this mean? This means if you try to fix it and suppress the inflation and you raise those rates, our financial system will collapse. The economy won't survive it. We now have, the president has also dipped into the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Remember when Biden did this, and this was during COVID, and Trump spoke out and raged against it, saying this was irresponsible and so forth? Well, I found out yesterday that he sold something in the neighborhood of 17.8 million barrels of oil. Just as within the last week, as an effort to suppress the prices of oil, to keep it below $110 per barrel. Well, the problem with this is, at this rate, our Strategic Petroleum Reserve will probably be exhausted by the end of July, beginning of August, especially since he's also sold below market price unknown quantities of oil to some of our Asian friends. Now, doubtless
he had popcorn, shrimp, and tater tots.
What they thought about his
and if he gets hungry again later, he wants fish sticks and curly fries.
But this is not a long-term solution. This is all short-term thinking. What happens when you hit bottom on this Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What happens when you can't skirt or skate away from the consequences? Right now people think that when all the chickens come home to roost, and I'm talking about everything, the loss of oil around the world and the gas and the minerals and everything else, we could see as much as a 36% reduction in the size of the global economy. Now, why is that important? Because during the Great Depression, the world economy was reduced by 20%. However, we had an advantage, believe it or not, during the 30s in the United States. And one advantage that we had was that all of our allies during World War I owed us lots of money because we sold them not just weapons and bullets and so forth. We also sold them a lot of food and a lot of other mineral resources. And we asked that they pay for those things in gold. So we had a lot of gold pouring into our country. And then finally, our debt to GDP ratio was so small, it was hardly worth mentioning in the 1930s. Today, our debt to GDP ratio is 125%. Some people say it's higher, it's actually 130, but it's certainly climbing. It's not by any means being reduced. You put all of that together, and he's sitting on top of a very large ticking time bomb, politically, socially, culturally, financially, economically.
I mean, it's really hard to imagine that Americans support this, and most of them don't. And so you continue to see these market perversions, such as the 50-year mortgage, which will only increase the price of a house and enslave Americans for longer. Various sort of band-aids, but it's all a perversion of a natural financial system in order to wage these wars, and I think Americans are seeing it. So that is both the silver lining for us and the curse, the poison pill for the administration. It has to come to a head because we have to start to reject it. Is there any way we can do that other than just complaining here unprotected?
Well, someone sent me a chart this morning showing that 90% of the spending inside the United States is a function of 10% of the American population.
Right.
And if you look at the distribution of wealth, it's almost the same. And normally when you see that kind of thing, the word revolution springs to mind. Because when things collapse, when things fail, that's when people finally take to the streets. When you can't buy gas, when you can't get the food that you want, when the supply chains break down, that's when chaos breaks out. And that's when things change. I don't know how else to put it, because this sort of maldistribution of wealth gets worse with each passing day. And if you look at the White House right now and the people surrounding President Trump, they are a microcosm of what I'm describing. That's what you're seeing. Every time they manipulate the markets, what do you see happen? People walk out with wheelbarrows full of cash, all by shorting something, usually oil. So there is no easy way out, Natalie. I'm afraid the only way out is the hard way. And I think at some point we're going to see it. I don't know when it happens. I mean, you got to bring on Nassim Taleb, who invented the black swan, and maybe he can give you a better assessment there. But the black swan is definitely going to take off, and when it does, it's going to be hell to pay. And I don't think right now most people in Washington are aware of it. If anything, they're delusional. They look at the markets, they don't see the danger. How you could read it is beyond my imagination, but they really don't.
I saw a report today saying we can see the markets going up 20 to 30% this year in the midst of all of us. So the rich will get richer, and the average Americans will get totally squeezed. And so many people in our chat room right now said the Colonel is spot on 100%. I've been saying this, goddammit. So in our chat room about the second American Revolution. What we're facing right now, it's unsustainable. It's going to fall on some president's lap at some point, whether it's Trump or the next person. But $39 trillion in debt and an unsustainable path. We're on a collision course for disaster.
The big news is that I think President Trump, with his decision to go to war with Iran, has actually accelerated this process.
the podium because she got.
So I think it's going to land in his lap, whether he likes it or not.
She brought it out. I mean, I can't believe that she would ever.
Well, thank you for that, Colonel. It's great to talk to you. I do, but only on a personal level, not about the subject matter. I just happen to like you that much.
What I love about you is you're able to just cut through the BS. I mean, and just and whether it's not trying to sugarcoat anything, just keep it straight. And that's what we need right now. So I hope people are paying attention. And whether J.D. Vance decides he's not going to run at all, he doesn't want to be a part of it. He doesn't want to be handling this mess. So I don't know. Something very interesting is happening right now in Washington. I think we are at a tipping point moment. So thank you, Colonel, as always, for your assessment and your analysis. Second to none. So thank you, sir. Great to see you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the terrorist attacks you're not supposed to know about. Some of the bloodiest in recent decades. Guess what? It was not done by Iran. You want to know who paid for it? Got a mirror around? If you're a U.S. taxpayer, it was probably you. We're going to go over this because these are the terror attacks you are not supposed to feel, you are not supposed to see, or remember. We'll do that in just a second.
But first, guys, Agenda 2030. It's real. It's the end game. And the DOJ's Epstein files further back it up. The elites are just trying to hoard the world.
She get that from? Did she get that from social media?
World's resources. Their total domination plan is to control us from the inside out.
She's almost like
They put synthetic silicon, graphene oxide in us via the vaccine, even the air and water. Those two toxins allow the 6G technology that's rolling out to forever connect us to the wide body area network, and that is the key. That is the key component of their plan. And that will fully turn us into transhuman, fully controllable computer biosystems. It's what they want. It's what the CIA wants. It's what the globalists have wanted. This is what David Icke has been warning about for years. Complete dystopia, but it's exactly what they want. They're not even hiding it anymore. And there's never been a solution to actually cleanse these toxins out of our body, but now there is. It's called Masterpiece Zeolite Z. It's a natural, all-natural detox formula with two powerful minerals. One is volcanic zeolite, which removes these toxins from your body, and the second is sea plasma to replenish your body with minerals, and it's proven. Watch how it works.
Masterpiece delivers the sea plasma
way more authentic way than that.
to the exact areas where the toxins are, then uses zeolite to bind the toxins
I think
and carry them
Take
out
me
so
to
your
the
cells are energized, alkalized, and toxin-free.
And actually, one of our best guests we had here on the show, Jesse Beltran, is the leading expert on transhumanism and Havana syndrome, the biosystem. He was recently the third-party analyzer for the Masterpiece
Fight back against this and go, boy, what is she talking about now?
political
And then
study
she's talking about
and
Trump
testing
trying to
people's
stop
synthetic
Windows.
silicon-based computer
Tech
tech
before
and after taking Masterpiece Zeolite Z. And get this, their semiconductive levels are down 80% in just 2 months after taking it, breaking their control system and removing that threat. And of course, he was part of that documentary called Dying Suddenly, and when they examined corpses in the graveyards, they were still giving off a signal. They were giving off a Bluetooth signal. We featured that here on the show. I encourage you to go watch that full interview. It is astonishing to see all of these corpses that had taken that shot and were sending off this signal 6 feet under the ground. Like, what the hell? What are we living in right now? It's unbelievable. They're even doing a follow-up documentary now, thankfully, on that because it's so effective using Masterpiece. Anyway, I want you guys to check it out right now. Do your own research on it. Just go to masterpiece.health/redacted. So that's the website. It's not .com. It's masterpiece.health/redacted and save 10% off of any bottle that you buy. There it is on your screen. Just write that down, 10% on any bottle that you order, and go through this cleanse. You're going to feel better, be depoisoned, and you're going to feel amazing. Stop Agenda 2030 in its tracks and keep our minds sovereign and the world free.
Well, we keep hearing that Iran supports terrorism. Instead of refuting that, I would like to turn the mirror on the people who say that. The warring class repeats these things, but they have blood on their hands too, and that includes both political parties in the U.S., by the way. Now here's a short list of mass killings linked to U.S. power in the last at least 30 to 40 years, and I filtered these by at least 100 deaths in a single day. Now if I expanded this to dozens, I would need, I don't know, dozens of screens. I'm just going to focus on these today because they're horrific and they're things that were speed bumps in American consciousness, but inform how people abroad think about us. Now, each of these were funded by U.S. taxpayers, and no one was really ever held accountable for them. Now, Iran has never launched anything close to this magnitude of terror on the U.S. We may even add a city to this list and a date today because Israel has launched deadly attacks on Tyre, Lebanon, and the surrounding regions, but we don't know the death count yet. Reports are still coming in. We know that Israel issued evacuation orders overnight. People were buried in their home. It probably is going to be a horrific one, so hold on, but we need to wait to see the extent of it. So for now, let's rewind the clock back to 1988, less than a decade after the Islamic Republic of Iran was established, when the United States committed one of the deadliest acts ever carried out on Iranian civilians. The victims' families are still alive and still remember this. This was July 3rd, 1988. It's the wreckage of Iranian Air Flight 655. On July 3rd, I just said that, 1988, it was conducted by the U.S. Navy warship called the U.S. Vincennes. Now, this was a civilian plane flying from Bandar Abbas, headed for Dubai. There were 290 human beings on board, all killed in a second by bombs. 66 of them were children, mothers holding their babies, grandparents, students, workers heading for their jobs in Dubai. The plane was presenting no threat to the U.S. warship. It was following a normal commercial flight corridor over the Persian Gulf, climbing normally. It had a civilian transponder on board. It was not diving towards the ship. It was quite simply a normal 28-minute commercial flight until missiles tore the aircraft apart and bodies fell into the water, body parts floating in the surface. Now, why did the U.S. do this? The official explanation was not even an apology. It was kind of an oops. They say that they mistook the civilian Airbus for an attacking Iranian F-14 fighter jet during a tense naval confrontation in the Persian Gulf. But there are problems, of course, with that excuse. The flight was broadcasting a civilian transponder signal. It was flying a known pattern. Multiple military personnel aboard the U.S. Vincennes reportedly had data indicating that it was a commercial civilian craft. And here's another detail that Americans rarely hear. This happened during the U.S. aggression on Iran. It was called Operation Praying Mantis. Just months earlier, President Reagan had authorized Praying Mantis, which was the largest U.S. naval combat operations since World War II. Their mission was to attack Iranian oil platforms and naval forces during the Iran-Iraq War. Why were we involved in the Iran-Iraq War? Well, because the U.S. was backing Iraq in order to topple Iran, which they did for decades. Just a few years earlier, the United States was politically aligned with Iran, but foreign policy shifted on a dime, and the U.S. decided that Iran was the enemy, used Saddam Hussein to launch an Iraqi war on Iran until we decided we didn't like him anymore and get rid of him. Now, it's worth remembering this is all happening during the same period that Iraq was using chemical weapons against the Iranian troops with the help of the CIA. That's where they got these chemical weapons. This happened from 1980 to 1988, killed between 50 and 100,000 people. The 50,000 number is reported by the CIA. So we know that we helped Iraq kill Iranian civilians and troops en masse. Now, it's notable that Iran had the technology to use chemical weapons back then, and they chose not to based on their Islamic principles. But back to the downed plane. Did the United States ever apologize for downing that plane of almost 300 civilians? They did not. And in fact, President Reagan at the time called it proper defensive action, which was clearly a lie. A few weeks later, Vice President Bush said this.
I'll never apologize for the United States of America. Ever. I don't care what the facts are. I will lead her. I will do my level best to stand up for freedom and democracy around the world by keeping the United States of America strong and by keeping our eyes wide open as we welcome change in the world by keeping our eyes wide open.
So he said he would not apologize. He didn't care what the facts are. You killed 300 people on a civilian plane. I don't care, basically, was the U.S. official position. Now, the media did condemn this for a short period of time, but there were very small consequences for the United States. There was demand for the United Nations to condemn the incident. They did not. Instead, the United Nations passed Security Council Resolution 616, where United Nations member states said that they were deeply distressed and gravely disturbed by the incident. Wow.
It definitely is put on.
Iran did bring a case against the U.S. in the International Court of Justice, but the U.S. settled that case in 1996 for $131.8 million plus 2 new Airbuses. And that was the end of that. For Americans, we have largely been allowed to forget it. Oops, sorry,
ladies love
didn't mean to do that. Actually, not even that, not even a sorry. But for Iranians, it became a part of the emotional foundation of their distrust of the United States. It was proof in the Iranian worldview that the United States talks endlessly about terrorism and civilian protection while excusing its own mass civilian killings. And in fact, as you can see, this memory was crystallized in Iranian culture. Here was a stamp that was issued by the Islamic Republic after the attack. It was memorialized as an American attack on innocent civilians that was in character with American foreign policy. Now, I ask you, if something had happened like this to us, wouldn't it be, for decades, a part of our collective national trauma? I submit that it would. Think about the pain that we still feel over 9/11, Columbine, any mass shooting. It's solidified in collective pain and experiences and informs our global worldview. And when you combine that with later events, such as just from this year alone, the February 28th bombing of the girls' school, we begin to understand why most Iranians cannot think of the United States as a force for peace, democracy, and civilian protection the way Americans say that they see us. Sure, would you be able to, in any form or fashion, after this collective pain, think of the United States as the force to save you? And again, look at this short list that I compiled of U.S.-backed terror attacks in the region. And here I am again, only
He's got to end the Iran war by the end of June.
with over 100 killings, and even this list is not exhaustive. If you'd like to add to it, please do let me know. But if I were to expand it to U.S.-backed military attacks with at least 10 deaths per day, I would need dozens of slides.
Well,
Be here for an hour.
one to me is done.
But each of these events, again, is a collective memory in the region to the tune of October 7th to Israelis, 9/11 to us. But they don't even get a date. They don't even say 2/28, which is the day that we bombed that Minot Girls School, or 4/8, which is the day that we killed hundreds in Beirut when Israel launched those attacks with our money and weapons. I do include here the Mariah shelter bombing because no justice ever came from that attack. On February 13, 1991, the United States dropped 2 precision-guided bombs on this shelter in Baghdad where hundreds of civilians were sheltering from air raids. The blast sealed people inside, ignited an inferno so intense that entire families were burned alive, while many bodies were later found melted into the wall of the shelter.
It already came.
Did that.
You were in the room when it came.
The 1996 Ghana massacre on April 18th, 1996. Israeli artillery shelled the United Nations compound in Ghana, Lebanon. Hundreds of civilians had taken shelter there during fighting in southern Lebanon. More than 100 civilians were killed, including women and children.
I think it would be a blessing and a curse at the same time. I was very struck by when Vice President Vance said, we don't always necessarily agree with Susan, but Susan is the best thing for Maine. You can't, that is an endorsement right there when he said that.
I agree that that's an endorsement,
is again being attacked by
And
Israel. That's still happening. In April killed at least 5 people and wounded dozens in an attack on that city in the middle of the night. So I just wonder, I just bring you this historical truth to ask you again, when people scream about the Iranian regime supporting terrorists,
let me
do
ask
they
you.
have a mirror?
John,
Do they remember these things? Do they know who the
So,
real terrorists are?
so
Who has
let me ask
actually
you this,
shed blood and
Graham,
who
read
has
Trump's
not?
mind.
We
Is
should
Trump
think about this
more
very short,
vindictive
not exhaustive list
or
the next time
pragmatic?
someone says Iran is
Because
a terrorist state or Iran
if it's
supports
vindictive, then he's
terror.
going to say F you to
If we
Collins,
were victims
and
like
that's
this,
just it.
what would
He's pragmatic that he's
when someone says,
endorsing
oh,
her
they really want
and
to,
hoping for some
they want to hurt
protection come
Americans.
impeachment
Maybe
time.
they want this to stop. Maybe that's what they want.
I haven't
They
been
suggest to
studying
system.
the map
And again,
hardcore
today
of
Israel
the
launched
overall
an
Senate
attack on
race, but if
Tyre
it's
and
one
the
of these
surrounding
where it's
areas
like
of
this is
Lebanon
the swing vote of the
after
Senate,
issuing
you'll probably
evacuation orders in the
be
middle
more
of the night.
pragmatic
They
is my
bombed an
guess.
entire residential building,
The
including
challenge I think
Palestinian
Susan
refugee
Collins
camp
has
with
is
civilians
like
inside, children,
identifying
men,
the
entire
issues to
families
run
got
on that are
buried in
going to
the rubble of their
motivate
homes.
Republican voters.
It is
That is
another
the big
massacre we
advantage
will
that
be
Plattner
invited to
has.
forget.
Is because he's
So,
never
will
been
we
a
participate
politician
in this
before. He can just make up these pie in the sky, give everyone a unicorn policies that sound good because there's no record that people can look back on and be like, oh, he failed to do this.
His
we have to
give everyone a job,
9/11, the
a
false
meaningful
flag, in
job
order to
by
provoke us
constitutional
into
amendment
war.
policy is my favorite one on his website. I don't think he talks about that one enough, but that's my favorite one of his promises.
Yeah, his policies are ridiculous. What was the one about like capping electric rates or something?
They are all absurd. They are all ridiculous. You just have to take a look at his campaign page and see the kind of nonsense he's
where are these
proposing.
terror attacks that the United States
But I don't think Collins has necessarily done an unbelievable job of pitching herself yet, and I think they need to figure out how to do that. And I actually think that they could do that. I think she's very smart. I think she's delivered a ton for Maine. I think she'd be a way better senator than Graham Plattner would be. I just think they need to really lock down on the messaging to start selling that a little bit more to people.
I also think she also needs to get in everybody's Twitter streams and Facebook streams more often.
Exactly.
It seems like she's benched a little bit, and then like other than that Bath Ironworks, spot that they did, just don't see much of her. Get out there, like you said, Graham. Rent Graham Pollard here. Get somebody.
Well, rent Bobby Charles. Like, look what he's doing. Not everything. There should be a variety of content there. I love that they're going to the Memorial Day events. Like, that's fantastic. You should be doing that. But that shouldn't be the only thing. You can't just throw a photo up there and call it a day on social media. Bobby Charles is putting out 20, 30 things a day. And honestly, that's what I would recommend any of these candidates to do. Or like 5 to 6 high-quality things a day. I would probably do like a mix between the two of them. But, it feels a little robotic. It feels like someone on their team has something that says, okay, 1 post a day, and then they make sure to fulfill that requirement, and then whatever they have in the can just kind of goes out there, whether it's good or not.
I don't agree with it, but I think they're waiting until the primary is over. That's the only thing that would make sense, is that they're just waiting until June 9th,
That makes I can understand the thought process behind that as a strategy if the Democrats had a primary, but since they don't, it just seems like she's just taking the hits without hitting back.
I agree.
Totally agree, Seamus. Yeah, I mean the campaign's on right now, for all intents and purposes.
And Seamus, I think that she needs to act a little bit. The campaign needs to act as if they have no money, and do their social media that way. Okay, we have no money. How do we get into earned media on every single news cycle? How do we do it? And if that means that you have to drag the senator out of the Russell Building and go down to to the playground to do a 20-second video, then do it. But you need to get in shape here. Get in every cycle, news cycle.
She understands the issues way better than Plattner understands the issues. Way better. Look at her talk about triad weed versus the thing that Plattner put out about triad weed, where he's just like, oh yeah, the corporations, which is absolutely nothing to do with the issue whatsoever. It's just complete bogus platitude he threw out there. But I think Susan Collins is kind of running a campaign like she did in the past, where back in the day, the TV and the newspaper was your publicity. And in 2026, you need to really make your own publicity. I don't know if they've totally embraced that assignment yet.
They have not.
Yeah. In other words, also you got to put a damper on it. If you're just a kind of a passive fan of Maine politics, then what you're seeing is, wow, it's Plattner time. This guy, something's happening with this guy. He came out of nowhere. You know, you say, well, he's just an oyster guy, kind of like me. He served, but he hates the wars. He's got all this problematic posting, but all these other Democrats here are still back him, so he can't be that bad. And plus, the Republicans are doing memes about him, so, like, she needs to get in that conversation. She's not in.
It's interesting to me, Tom, you brought up Plattner. People, still people say to me, Plattner, is he that Nazi guy? Nobody has ever said to me, Plattner, is he that oyster guy? No, I'm not being serious, and I'm not taking a shot at Plattner.
Yeah.
I'm out on the streets every day, and in often hostile situations. It was in Portland today, and I literally had somebody say to me, "Yeah, that Nazi guy, that's Plattner, right?" So, but my point is that he's being defined as that Nazi guy, and he's still doing as well as he's doing. I'm still trying to make that all work in my mind a little bit.
John, they just hung Auchincloss in the public square.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to hire the Nazi guy.
Right.
They're like, you step down. Where are we? What year is this?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. Just bizarre.
Did you guys see the tweet from the official Democrats today, National Democrats? That was in reply to a Stephen Miller post, and it said, "Shut up, you ugly F." And it's like, that's where they are now. They have ditched the cape of being the nice lead with compassion party. They are fully embracing the party of hate and rage right now. And they call it an ugly F. Yeah.
Wow,
that's like with a main avenue of attack you see for Stephen Miller, and he's just a very normal-looking guy.
Yeah, he's a perfectly normal guy, better looking than all of us probably, honestly.
If he was a crazy...
Well, I'm seeing Shattuck naked now. I might.
Gonna have to recalibrate.
All right, fellas. That'll do it for me. Anybody got anything else, or should we wrap it up until tomorrow?
Good on my end.
Keep your clothes on tomorrow, Tom. Keep your clothes on tomorrow.
I can make no such guarantee. He is Graham Pollard, Seamus Othot, John Featherston. I am Tom Shattuck, all of the Mainwire. We'll see you tomorrow and every day right here at 4 p.m. on Mainwire TV.
Life is a blessing once we sneeze from conception. Our souls become stronger from the stress that we've been just no windows of redemption. Are strictly from protection when we're stuck in life's traffic. It's like a soul prophylactic, beginning to fade away. Lord, take my pain away. Live this life the best I could. Beat up the mess that I should. Even though we're born to die, please keep that thought alive. I never fought with pride. I just tossed to the side. God, please let the angels come. Bring me to the podium. I'm ready for my judgment. I'm just a human interrupting your words. I always trusted, but my lust kept me flustered. Hot dogging in these streets. To be frank, I tried to muster, crushed up my faith just to touch, but I lost it quick. And gotta take the dark side, so I switched. Same song, different pitch. I'm here, but I'm found.
Come on, friends and neighbors, you know you're all to die. My situation now, because the judgment day draws nigh. Glory, hallelujah, am I born to die? Must my tremble on the spirit fly? And I born to die, to lay this body down, 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 down.
2026 Nissan Rogue. It's the most powerful Rogue ever. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality. Woodland Senior Living of Farmington. Park Residences, private retirement apartments. The community you want. The safety you want.
As a doctor who used to take Xanax, I will never take this drug again. Today I'm going to explain exactly why. And this is coming from the perspective of someone who's a board-certified psychiatrist who worked at both the FDA and the pharmaceutical industry in drug safety. And I've been taking people off sedative medication non-stop for the last 6 years in my specialized taping practice. And what I can tell you is this: benzodiazepines and sedatives are some of the most common and most problematic drugs that I deal with in my clinic, more than any other drug. And so today I'm going to share the top 3 reasons why you should avoid taking these medications. So the first one is they are addictive quickly. You will not understand how many people I talk to who are just like, hey, I'm this straight-laced guy, I've never even had problems with alcohol, and before I knew it, I was hooked on this drug. I hear this every day. And the reason they are so addictive is because it's hard to think of another psychiatric medication that works just as well and just as quickly. If you have a really hard moment in your life, maybe the loss of a loved one, or someone's sick, or something crazy is happening in your life, and you have severe anxiety, tension, or the worst thing of all, insomnia, man, can insomnia be demoralizing? It will bring you to your knees. And even if you are someone who never thought about taking pharmaceuticals, when you've been going through that for a while, you will. You'll call your doctor and you'll take what he gives you. And what you'll find if they give you Xanax is that within 20 minutes of taking it, and at first, you are calmer, you are sleepy, it feels like a miracle, especially after those weeks of insomnia. And at first, there's very little downside to this. There's minimal hangover in the morning, and most people feel pretty good. But because they feel so low risk early on, man, it becomes easy to fall into this pattern where instead of just taking it one night, all of a sudden you start taking it several nights a week. I mean, that's what happened to me. And it's easy to see how this happens, because with something like sleep, insomnia is just so demoralizing and it just wears you down, that very quickly it becomes, well, do I want to take this drug, or do I want to feel terrible tomorrow? And most people are going to say, 16 hours of feeling terrible tomorrow, I'll take that medication. That's what the impulsive brain does. And that's really how it starts. Now, the second reason they should be really careful about getting on these drugs is that they wear off quickly and they are hard to stop. So after about 2 months, many people find that the initial dose doesn't work anymore. They just need more. And over a few years, you can end up on a high dose that barely works. And now you're stuck on a medication that you need to keep getting refilled that isn't really working very well for you. That's called tolerance. Now, the other issue that goes hand in hand with tolerance is the two sides of the same coin. You cannot get one without the other. Because as the dose increases on the medication, and the effect of the drug wears off over time. This is happening because your brain is adapting to the presence of higher doses of the drug. And with benzos, what this means is down-regulation of your GABA receptors. This is the main system that calms you down, helps you sleep. And so when you try and come off these drugs now, you don't have enough of that calming system available, so you run into 2 problems. You start getting withdrawal, you get insomnia, anxiety, muscle pain, ringing in the ears, light sensitivity, and you get hit with all of the original problems that led you to take the drug in the first place to begin with. And these withdrawal symptoms can be severe and long-lasting. So severe, in fact, that about 6 years ago, the FDA updated all of the labels of these sedatives to warn about a condition called protracted withdrawal, which says in there that these symptoms can go for a year or sometimes longer. And for some people, that withdrawal is simply so intense that they cannot see a way off this medication because they cannot tolerate withdrawal symptoms for that long. And so what happens is they end up being stuck on a medication that deep down in their heart they really want to come off. Now, if you're someone who's listening to this and you're just like, damn, I'm actually already on this medication and I've tried to come off and I've had a really hard time and I hate the fact that I'm now like addicted to this thing. I don't like that doctors and the pharmacists are looking at me with this side eye now that it's just like, oh, you know, look at you, you're on all these sedatives. I want you to know that we have a solution for you. So below this video, we have published our safe tapering guide. This walks you through exactly how to come off these medications in the safest and most comfortable way possible, and also to transition to non-drug approaches to managing your anxiety and insomnia. If you go through this guide, I promise you, you will know more about safe tapering than even your doctor. So that's waiting for you completely free below this video. Now let's get back to the video. Now reason 3 for why you should avoid these medications is because they turn on you. The brain is not designed to be in a drug state for years at a time. And what I see with my patients is that over time, these sedative medications start to create new problems. And we see this across all psychiatric medications, not just become benzos. The antidepressants, they cause tardive dysphoria. They make people feel flat, have brain fog, and feel unmotivated after they've been on them for several years. The antipsychotics cause tardive dyskinesia, which is an involuntary movement disorder. Can also cause cognitive issues. Mood stabilizers like lithium cause something called silent syndrome, where people get tremors and they become discoordinated and they also have cognitive issues as well. And so this is really the rule out there. If you take some of these medications long term, people will develop late onset side effects that will make their mental state worse. And here is what I see with benzodiazepines. This is often referred to as bind. It's called benzodiazepine-induced neurological dysfunction. And here's what it looks like in real patients. They start to have more anxiety than they did before they started, or maybe they didn't even have anxiety. They got on it for sleep, and now all of a sudden they're more anxious. They're kind of withdrawing from social occasions and trips because it just seems like too much. It seems like too hard to do those things. Just like, I don't want to do that. You start to have mood swings throughout the day and feel more irritable. You feel constantly tense or edgy. You start to have intrusive or obsessive thoughts just like popping into your mind, even though you never had them before. In some individuals, they start to actually have neurotoxicity. They'll have ringing in their ears, they'll have light sensitivity, they might experience some tingling in their hands and feet, and of course they will also have memory problems and brain fogs. These are all signs that the drug is making it worse. Really need to think about coming off soon. Now, unfortunately, this stuff is often completely misdiagnosed as a new psychiatric condition, and it leads to people getting put on antipsychotics, antidepressants, all sorts of new medications when it's actually an effect of the drug taken for their insomnia. Now, when I ended up on Xanax for about 6 months, this was really during a difficult time. Work was crazy and I had a newborn at home, and after about 6 months, it made me worse and I had all of these intrusive thoughts. Thankfully, I recognized it was due to the drug and I was able to come off, and then I changed my lifestyle to fix my insomnia. And the truth is, you can do the same. And so if you're interested in learning non-drug approaches to anxiety and insomnia, but not going to one of this next video.
I just plated myself.
Alright, Chewy. Some other questions. Why do you hate the bath?
Today we're going to talk about the most overlooked cause of insomnia, the one issue that keeps people stuck even after they've tried every sleep remedy. Because if you don't address this issue, your insomnia will become chronic. And this is how many people end up on sleeping medications, like the nearly 10% of Americans who take them every year. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Joseph During. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and I take people off sedative medications and help them sleep properly. The problem with insomnia is that most people have wired their brains to be in a state of high arousal. And they've been in this state for so long that they don't even recognize it anymore. And so if you are someone who is tense, maybe you pace a little bit, you're irritable, you're anxious, you have racing thoughts, this is you. I'm talking about you right now. Now, why does this matter for sleep? Because if you think about it, if you're kind of tense and keyed up, wouldn't that mean your body would want to shut down and help you sleep because you need more rest? Well, no, that's not what happens. Because high quality sleep can only ever happen in a low arousal state. Now, unfortunately, if most of your waking hours are in a stressed out state, your brain is not going to know how to shift gears, and you need to be able to shift into that low arousal state to help you get that dense restorative sleep, which you're not having. And here's the number one mistake that most doctors make about sleep. They talk about it as if it's just a nighttime problem, and it's not. Chronic insomnia is a daytime problem. It is a daytime problem due to chronic hyperarousal during the day. So you might be asking yourself, well, where does this high arousal state come from? Well, for many people, it's actually cultural, especially in places like the United States. And I want to make this point by sharing a little anecdote. So I'm an Australian and I'm living in the US, and people will often ask me, how do the two compare? You know, what do you miss the most about Australia? Many people often think, yo, it's the natural beauty, Australia's got the Great Barrier Reef, but honestly it isn't. The US is plenty nice in that regard. What I tell people all the time is that I miss the culture around work and school. Because the biggest culture shock for when I came here to do my residency was how insane everyone was about work. In the United States, and this is not the rest of the world, your college, your job, your promotions, all of this stuff is anchored strongly to your identity and your self-worth. And because achievement has become so woven into the American culture, the competition is constant. And this isn't a surprise to anyone. You don't build the largest economy in the world by accident. There's actually all of these pressures that push the population to perform and optimize to stay ahead. And on top of this pressure to perform at work, when you're in the US, you are also constantly exposed to advertising and social media telling you that you're not fit enough, you're not successful enough, and you're not healthy enough. And it creates this culture where enough never feels quite enough, and you have to keep on grinding to have the nice house, the nice job, the nice body, and everything else feels like failure. And because you're bombarded with all of these pressures, it has a big impact in how you live. And believe me, I fell into this trap for a long time, because this is what a normal day looks like for most American parents. Wake up, you smash a coffee, you frantically get the kids to school, you get to work at 8 a.m., you have another coffee, you work all day, you get the kids from the daycare, you come home, you do some grocery shopping, you cook some food, you clean up after the kids, you get the kids to bed, you haven't had any time to work out, so maybe you hit a workout at that point, and all the while you're making your way through your time-packed, rushed, stressed day, you're filling any 5 minutes of downtime with scrolling on your phone, looking at social media. The other big shift that's going on as well is that 70% of households in the US, both parents work now. And so it's not like there's like a mom at home who's like looking after the kids and picking up the slack there. No, both of them are working full-time jobs. And so the whole household is super stressed out. And this is why we get this weird thing called like revenge bedtime procrastination, which is this
Wait, does this work? Anna's friend said this would work. Oh, this better freaking work! I think this one really works, right? Nice. Supplements should be a science, not a belief system. That's why I trust Ritual.
idea that has emerged recently where lots of people all around the world who especially work very grueling, demanding jobs and are super busy all the time, they will go to bed at night and they will like sit on their phone or use the internet for hours, putting off their sleep to the point where they only get 4 or 5 hours, even though they know they need to have sleep. And that's because during the day, they literally do not have a second for downtime. They are just so revved up that they take that time for sleep and then they use it to relax. And obviously that's really bad. So living in this chronic stressed out state, why is this important and what does it have to do with sleep? Well, it's important because if you live like this for several months or years, you essentially wire your entire nervous system to be in a high arousal state all the time. If you have no downtime, you're constantly doing something and you're busy or you're watching stimulating TV or social media, you're just revving up your system. And if your nervous system forgets how to relax, not only will you develop insomnia, but you're going to develop a whole host of other problems. You will get joint pains, you will get migraine, you'll get high blood pressure, and you'll also get issues like anxiety and eventually depression if it carries on for a really long period of time. And so if you have wired your nervous system in this way, I am here to tell you this. There is no amount of early morning sun or blue light blocking glasses or sleep mantras that will help you. The only way you will start to get proper sleep again is by disconnecting from that and lowering your arousal. And my insights on this topic, I have to tell you, I've helped hundreds of people come off sedatives now, but I've also gone through this myself. I am someone who used to be a massive insomniac because when I was going through medical school and training, I used to drink 3 cups of coffee, I was using nicotine products like Zyn pouches, I would cram a workout in if I had 1 hour space on my calendar. And, I would stay up late at night because me and my wife were both working, and then we wanted to hang out with each other. And surprise, surprise, that's why I ended up taking Xanax for 6 months, which ultimately led me to get worse, and I came off it, and thankfully I didn't have any problems. But I was able to recover from my insomnia, and now I get consistently around 7 hours of sleep a night, and I have a solution for this. And this is what I did myself, and this is also what I do with a lot of my patients. And this is essentially how you can start to rewire your nervous system so you can sleep at night. Okay, so I want to talk quickly about 5 fast things that everyone could do right now to start bringing down that level of arousal. And I want to start with the most important because this is often written off. Now, the first one is you need to have very intense downtime during the day. Now, I have done this in 2 different ways. I have either done deep breathing for 20 minutes twice a day with my eyes closed, or I've done yoga nidra. If you like Huberman, he calls it non-sleep deep rest, but it's essentially where you're not on social media, you're really just downshifting your brain and getting into a meditative state. Believe me, I fought against this for a long time, and I would think, why would me meditating during the day help me stop waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and being wired? Well, it's because it creates these breaks in this level of arousal. Now, you heard that day I described before. If you're just doing one thing to another, you're essentially just ramping up your cortisol and your sympathetic nervous system. But if you can put a block in there where you consciously bring it down, and you do that twice a day, it's almost like restarting your computer. You know how your computer or your phone can get really slow and jumbled up if you keep it on too long? Doing the meditation or the yoga nidra restarts it, and you will feel better, and it will also kind of break up that stress. So that is by far the number 1 tip that I have to give you. If you do this every day for 5 days, you will see an improvement in your ability to stay asleep at night. It's totally overlooked and underrated in how effective it is. So that's the first thing, conscious downtime during the day. The second thing is stopping stimulants. Guys, this has to be a no-brainer. If you are constantly on stimulants or nicotine products, even during the day, again, it's just more kind of pressure on that hyper-arousal state in the brain, and so come off the coffee, come off the nicotine. If you're on drugs or other stimulating medications, try and lower the doses. ADHD medications, high doses of SSRIs, all of these things fragment sleep. And how could they not? If they're ramping up the neurotransmitters in your brain, that's so much harder to get into that low arousal state where you'll actually have that deep restorative sleep. So that's the second thing, cut the stimulants out. Number 3 is adequate nutrition for sleep. Now, here's what I see in my practice. Number 1 problem, not enough calories. A lot of people out there are not eating enough food. That will lead to a hyper-aroused state. So make sure you're eating enough calories. The second thing is the wrong balance of macronutrients. Guys, we need a little bit of everything. We need a bit of fat, we need enough protein, we need carbs. But the main problem that I'm seeing in my practice now, because everyone is really obsessed with ketogenic diets and low carb, is that they're not getting enough carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates to sleep if you're not fully keto adapted. And so try and get at least 100 to 200 grams of carbohydrates. It makes a huge difference in your sleep quality. The last thing that I want to say here about food is that you want to avoid a protein-heavy meal in the evening. Protein requires a lot of energy to break down. If you have a massive steak at 7 p.m. at night, that's going to bump your arousal. And so try and have most of the protein, breakfast and lunch, lower protein in the evening. And ideally, if you could stop eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed, again, the less food that's being digested in your gut, that will lower your arousal down. Okay, the fourth thing is I want you to take a break from social media, gaming, and non-stop TV and podcasts. Quit trying to shove these things into every spare moment of your day. I used to do this a lot. I know why we do this. You're busy, you're stressed, and it just feels like a break. You just want that dopamine hit because you're tense. It's a good distraction. The problem with this is it is not really a break. When you are consuming this content, that's not putting you into a parasympathetic calm state. It's keeping you revved up. And ideally what I want you to do is to replace that, whatever it is, 2 hours a day on average we're spending doing this. I want you to replace that with some slow breathing or some yoga nidra. Can you do that? Can you take 40 minutes from the social media and put it to these truly restorative practices? And there are ways that you can do that. In fact, there are some cool apps, which I'll tell you. For instance, I use an app called ClearSpace. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I think you have to pay for it. It's pretty cheap. But when I press Facebook on my phone, a thing pops up and it makes me do deep breathing for 5 seconds and says, do you really want to do this? And so if you could use an app like ClearSpace to kind of create that friction and try and redirect you, I found that to be really helpful. And it just makes sure that I go, you know what? I actually do feel stressed out. Instead of doing the social media, I'm going to go and do some of my breathing now to kind of help rejuvenate my system. Now the last thing that I want to mention that everyone can do right now is to engage in some type of journaling. Again, I cannot tell you how much friction I had when someone told me to do this. I've worked with people on my sleep, but journaling, I want you to think of it as essentially a tool to help you challenge your thoughts, your anxious thoughts. And so the first thing that journaling helps with is if there's all this stressful stuff going on during the day and frustrations and irritations, you write it down at night. You just take half an hour and you start writing them down and you just clear your mind. You write down all of the catastrophic thoughts and then you just challenge them. Instead of doing this up here, I always find that if I just write them down, it's just easier to look at them and just be like, you know what, this is not worth worrying now, let's talk about it later. So that's the first thing. It helps you address anxiety during the day that comes into the evening. Now the second thing is that journaling can help you address catastrophic sleep thoughts. Now, anxiety about sleep is the cause of chronic insomnia. Most insomnia will start because there's some stressor in their life, but there's a lot of people who have chronic insomnia that goes on and on even after the stressor. And that is because their anxiety about the insomnia is now driving the hyper-arousal that's keeping them stuck in this state. And this makes a lot of sense. You need to be relaxed to go to sleep. But if you've just been dealing with 3 months of insomnia and now you are frustrated and you're emotional about sleep because it's been eluding you for so long, here's what happens. You start to have a massive pity party in your head. You're like, why is this happening to me? You get the victim mindset. You get caught in this place where you're like, tomorrow is going to be terrible, I'm not sleeping. My health is going to fall apart. I can't look after my kid. I'm going to crash the car. And all of these thoughts will race in when you're sitting in bed and it's been 30 minutes and you haven't been able to fall asleep. That is what is causing the insomnia. And so you need to start challenging those thoughts and having a more empowered mindset. So what does that look like? Well, instead of having a pity party, shift gears. What is this teaching me? Insomnia is not something that is happening to you, it's happening for you. It is here to teach you something about how you're living your life. And so take on an empowered mindset about that. If you're worried about your health and your sleep, there's really no point stressing on that because that is just making things worse. And so the only thought that I really want you to have is this. Yes, insomnia is hard, but it is temporary. But there is a solution. I mean, you are listening to it right now, and you will figure it out. Do not wallow in that area of pain. So those are the 5 things that you can do right now, tonight, to start to fix your insomnia. If you stick to them, I have seen people make quite large changes within 5 days. And if you do it for a month, then it's even better. On to the long-term strategies, because there's a lot more to insomnia about those 5 things. And this is